Hey guys, welcome to the walkthrough tutorial or walkthrough video of the net worth tracker dashboard. I recently updated this to be a little bit more intuitive, organized, and just overall easier to update and follow along, especially if you're sharing it maybe with a spouse or something, which for example is my case. So for those of you new to the concept of net worth tracking, net worth is just your total assets minus your total liabilities. Um, for me, it's kind of the single most important personal financial metric that I keep up with for my household. I keep up with it on a monthly basis. If not monthly, that might be overkill for some of you. I would encourage you to do it quarterly. And so this template is something that has helped me stay on track with our family's personal finance goals. It's helped me stay motivated. It's a kind of accountability mechanism. And so just wanted to share with you how to walk through it. This is an example. It's a made up example. It's not a real client of mine. Just put in some numbers. And so I thought this would be helpful to just give it some more context for how you can fill it out. So I'll go through section one by one. I'll try and not make it too boring. So on the top, you'll see there's four summary metrics. So there's your net worth, of course, total assets, which will get automatically added up for you, total liabilities, annual income. Annual income, which we'll go through, is not necessarily have anything to do with your net worth calculation per se. I like to track it and look at it because there's a few kind of relational parallels to your net worth, and there's a few ratios you can look at that might give you an indication of if you're on track. So let's start there. So over here on the top left, here's your realized income section. There's a few subsections of it. So we'll go through these. So primary income. So for me, for example, this would be where I would fill this out. So this would be your monthly gross income. If you have any, and this would be base salary, and I like to track these separately. So if you're someone who also earns bonuses, maybe that's discretionary, so it's a little unpredictable. Maybe it's more predictable. I like to track that as a separate line item. And so again, this would be a monthly. So if you don't know exactly what your monthly bonuses are, I like to take the last 12 months average. All right. So in this made up case, we have $9,500 gross income a month. We have another $1,800 on average of bonuses. If you have someone else in the household that's generating income as well, consistent income, I would say, there's a line item for that. So here's $5,200. And then you have another cell if you want, if you have just any other income. So that could be kind of maybe some sort of just side gigs, side hustles, anything like that. That kind of just doesn't fall into these three categories. You can put into this one. Next, maybe you have a side business, or maybe you have a full-time business, and so you have a section for that. This would be the net income, so the net profit, not gross revenue from the business. This would be what you actually net on a monthly basis. Okay, so we'll just keep $650 for that. And then this last one, which is other annual income, this will be anything else, like maybe you have high yield savings account with cash in it that's giving you some interest yield every month. Maybe you sell stocks every once in a while or more consistently. And so this would be that annual income here of the realized stock gains. Rental income, maybe you have a rental property or something like that. You could put in there, and then anything miscellaneous that doesn't quite fall in. Okay, so in this case, we'll say total other annual is 6,600. So total gross is 212,000. Let me just modify one of these just so you can see how it'll automatically change for you. So you can see the total annual gross updated along with the actual specific section. I'll do that up here real quick just so you can see. So you can see that updated. So all of these have built-in Excel formulas in the background. You don't have to calculate anything. You just got to plug in your numbers. Okay, let's move on to assets. So we'll start with real estate assets. If you have a primary residence, this would be what that is worth. So that would be your best guess at the estimate. Maybe you've gotten it recently appraised. If not, a source like Zillow or Redfin will do just fine. If you have another property, maybe you have an investment property, same thing here, section for that. Furnishings, personal property, any other property assets that don't fall into real estate. So, that could just be anything in your home that's worth money, right? It could just be your furniture, jewelry, things like that. Do your best to estimate the value on that. So again, let's just make it up. Type it in, you'll see the total real estate asset section will calculate for you. Vehicles. This would be what you could sell it for private party. So this would be private party Kelly Blue Book value. So vehicle number one, we'll say is worth 28,000. We'll say vehicle two, we think we could sell it for private party 18,500. And so, and again, let me just make it up. Let's say I have another third vehicle. That'll calculate for you. Okay. Next asset section is going to be non-retirement accounts. So this would be any kind of like, taxable brokerage account. Right. So maybe you have an investment account that is not a retirement account that has some stocks in it, bonds, cash, whatever. This would be the value of any of those accounts. HSA would be included in here. So this would be an account that can be liquidated if you need to. So HSA is a little bit of a gray area, obviously, because that's just for medical expenses, but it still falls into the non-retirement investment accounts because it can also double as an investment account. If you're someone who works for an employer who has some sort of stock ownership program, that would go here. Let's just put in some numbers. 1,000, I'll update for you. And then anything else, of course, as usual, that can't be captured in one of these, you can just put in the other investment account line item. Retirement accounts. So any 401ks, 403bs, any IRAs, anything considered a retirement account, you put in the value of each of those accounts in this section. That's pretty straightforward. So let's just modify it and it'll update for you. I like to track crypto separately, especially if you have those invested in separate, brokerages or platforms or exchanges. So you have your own section for crypto. If you have any assets for children in the household, so 529 plan, right? So like a college savings education plan, I like to track those separately. So in this case, let's just say that one up a tad. That'll update for you. Any cash you have. So this would just be your good old-fashioned checking or savings accounts. Any liquidity you have in there. That would be all tracked in the personal cash reserve section. That would include physical cash that you might have, in the house in a safe or something. And then if you have some sort of business, I track those separately. So that would just, again, be just literal cash in a business checking or savings account that you have. And so total cash reserves is tracked with those sections combined. You can see here. So again, in this example, 42,900 is total cash reserves. And then total assets is going to calculate all those asset sections we just went through. So in this example, 957,200. I like to just in this spreadsheet keep up with any life insurance policies. It does not affect the calculation of your net worth at all. But I like to just track it there. One of the other reasons this Excel spreadsheet is so important is that it can be, let's say, God forbid, something happens to you, and maybe you're more involved in your personal finance than your spouse. If your spouse knows, this is the spreadsheet that essentially has documentation of how many assets, where all of them are. That can also be, that gives me some peace of mind. And so that's another reason to kind of put anything like a life insurance policy, just call it out. Again, no calculations built in, but it's just there for visibility. And then we have liabilities. So this would be any debts you have, any loans. So if you have a mortgage, in this example on both properties, you put the remaining loan balance there. So we'll say the first one owes 312, second one 150. If you have any auto loans on the vehicles, you'd include that here. Any student loans, if you have personal loans, family loans, things like that, put that here. And then credit card balances, right? That'd be anything above just the normal monthly principal, monthly balance you owe. That'd be here. So any credit card debt. And so that'll calculate all total liabilities for you. And so now you have your actual net worth summary. So it'll give you total assets, total liabilities, subtracts that, and that'll give you your net worth. So in this example, we'll say it's $445,400 is the net worth. Debt to asset ratio is just taking your total liabilities into your total assets as a percentage. Why do I like that? Debt to asset ratio is a good indicator of maybe how much risk you're taking in your personal finance. And so the lower the percentage, the lower the risk, the higher percentage, the higher the risk. This is not necessarily financial advice. I like to stay under 40%. Anything above that, usually indicates you're getting a little bit more risky, you're a little more over leveraged, and so I like to track that over time as well. And this little table up here will kind of just give you a quick glance at your asset types and the percentage you have of your overall assets in each category, which is kind of nice if you're trying to make sure you're staying diversified. Okay, so let's go into trends. So we have a trend sheet. So this is a summary. This will give you some summary graphs. So as you fill this out over time, you can input your net worth, assets, and debt into, and just indicate the date you filled it out. And you can just start building a little table for yourself. And so as you add this graph over here will update for you, right? So today's 2/15/26, and let's just plug in our numbers. So our net worth is 445,400. Our assets are 957,200, and total debt is 511,800. And so you can see graph updates. And so this is super important and helpful for me to stay motivated, stay on track, because not only am I just seeing a snapshot of it, I'm actually seeing what our trend is over time. And so, of course, what you hope to see is total assets kind of gradually going up, total debt gradually going down, and your net worth gradually going up. And so, again, keeps me on track. Last thing I have in this overall spreadsheet is a net worth benchmark. So this is something I go off of. I would consider this more of a guideline than anything. It's not necessarily a hard and fast rule, but this is a table that'll track every 5 years a benchmark of kind of financial goals. And so there's every 5 years it'll tell you what a goal could be for pre-tax savings, post-tax savings, property equity, and most importantly, average net worth. So let's just say in this example, let's say Alex and Jordan are 40. And so you can see in our benchmarks, 40, your average total net worth would be 660 as a goal. And so what it'll tell you is kind of where do you stand as of that goal. So actual net worth is 445. And so your actual percent of the benchmark, which again is 660, is going to be 47.5%. And so I also like to track annual income as a percent of net worth. So that's just taking this number divided by your actual net worth at the time. And why I like to track that is if your goal or part of your goal of this is to make sure you're kind of having enough money for retirement, that number can be a helpful ratio. And so the lower that number is, so the lower unless you're relying on your annual income to contribute to your net worth. In theory, mathematically, the idea is, the better shape you might be in to retire. So 47% would be considered kind of high. All right, so if your net worth was $1 million and your annual gross income was 209, then this percentage would be a lot lower, which means over time it probably should get a little lower as your investments compound and things like that. And so again, it's just another indicator that can give you a sense of how much am I relying on my income to generate my wealth. Hopefully this is helpful for you guys. As usual, just send me a message or leave a comment if you have any questions or comments or feedback on it. Thank you.